Hi everybody, this is Oksana and today we're going to be making this pendant here. And before we get started, I just want to say that if you're not already subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that notification bell to be notified of new videos, which I post every weekend. Alright, so let's get started making this pendant. So for my base wires, I'm going to be using 19 gauge square copper, and this is dead soft copper, and I buy my copper on riogrande.com. And you need 2 pieces, and they measure 12 inches long. And I opted out for 19 gauge, which is a little thicker, because I want this pendant to be sturdy. And the stone that I'm using, it's a little teardrop Sodalite, and it is about 20 millimeters. Now there's a few key things about this design to make the stone stay in better and not be shaky or wobbly, and one of the things is the shape of the stone. So if you take a look at this teardrop, it is pretty wide up here. It's almost like a triangle shape. So that's what you want. You want it to be nice and wide up here at the top. Here I can measure the top of it. So the top is just a little bit less. It's like 18 millimeters. So it's 18 millimeters by 20 millimeters roughly. And the other wire we're going to be using is half round wire, and this is also dead soft copper, and this is 22 gauge. And what we want to do is just use it to connect. So just find the middle of your 2 wires, and then here in the middle we're going to wrap this half round wire around. So I'm just grabbing the tail end of it. The rest of it is still connected to my spool. And this is going to be the bail of our pendant. So first I wrap the tail end to connect, and then after that I'm gonna kind of swap sides here, and I'm gonna keep going with this. This is the wire that's still connected to the spool. So I'm just gonna guide it with my hand, and with my other hand I'm just turning. And you just want to do this for a little bit. Alright, so I think this is going to be an adequate length for my bail. And it's about 20 millimeters. Doesn't matter if yours is exact. Could be a little longer. Just you'll have slightly larger bail, that's fine. So I'm just going to trim my wire now, as well as this little bit here, so that the little ends of my wire are both here on the same side. And now I'm going to grab my pliers, just my regular pliers, and I'm going to press down on those little wire ends, as well as just the whole thing. Just going to go along and just press down on it all like this. So this side that has the wire ends, that is going to be the inside of the bail, so you want to bend it down like this so the wire ends are here on the inside and not here on the top. So we're just going to bend it like this. If you want, you can grab your stone, and that can help you get the right width like this. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to separate these front wires like this. And this next part is a little bit tricky. I just noticed that this wire, see how it's kind of starting to twist? So I'm just gonna fix that up, because square wire has flat sides, so you want the flat side facing you. So this part is tricky because the stone is not locked in at all, and so it's kind of hard to bend your wire at the same time as holding your stone. But basically, what we're trying to accomplish is we want the wire to kind of start up here, try and get it centered, and then just kind of hold it down, pinch it down, and then we want this to kind of curve down. I'll show you in a minute. I just can't let go right now because it's just all gonna slip out. We want it to curve down, and then here, kind of towards the bottom, we want it to go to the back like this. And it's kind of a key thing that it's going to the back, kind of low down, not too high up, but low towards the bottom of the teardrop. So now, just trying to do the same thing on the other side, but it's just really tricky to kind of hold this teardrop without having it slide all around. All right, so that actually came out surprisingly symmetrical. I thought I was gonna have to mess around with it. So this is what we have so far. And here on the back, these wires, just want to press them up against the back, and they're just naturally going to crisscross like this. And then just kind of bend them just ever so slightly towards the front, but we don't want them on the front yet because they might get in our way. All right, so now I know that the stone, actually what we're gonna do, because the stone really kind of goes up and that makes everything more difficult. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hold it and I'm gonna press these wires. I know I said that I wasn't bringing them all the way in the front, but I'm going to, because that's gonna prevent the stone from moving up into the bale. That'll make this part easier for us. So here we go. Kind of going on the front there. All right, so now these two wires, we are going to separate them and we're going to bend them underneath this other wire, kind of just towards the front like this. And then here on the front, so now these wires are kind of in my way a little bit here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put the wire here on the inside. So this wire, I'm just pressing down on it, making sure it stays under here. And I'm gonna do that with the other one as well. I'm just gonna swap because this wire is in the way and I want this to be kind of on the inside. So I'm just pressing it against the stone here. Like this. So what we're going to do now is these wires are quite long and it's going to be difficult for me to work with them, so I'm just going to trim them. We do need the length and kind of in these wires, but these ones can be shorter. So I've trimmed them because what I want to do, I'm just going to kind of temporarily bend these a little bit to the sides. What I want to do with these is I actually want to get them to go through here. And that's going to be hard if they're super duper long, but if they're shorter, I can just kind of gently bend and work them through. Now, make sure it stays here underneath. And I'm just kind of pressing down on it with my thumb to get it to go up against the stone. and I'm pulling on it, and here it is against the edge of the stone. So now I'm just going to do the other one. Just working it through, and then here kind of pulling it through the bail there. And now I have to try and get it to be symmetrical with the other side. Alright, so then these wires here, we're just gonna push down on them, kind of give them a little curve. So to finish off these wires, I'm just going to trim them. But leave myself a little end so that I can grab that little end and I can just kind of form a loop and close the loop by just tucking that little end away like that. And same thing here on the other side. I am trimming the wire, and then I am kind of pushing that little wire end in there, kind of forming and closing that little loop there. Now I notice that this loop is much smaller than the other loop turned out, so I think that what I'll do is I'll just try to get in here and trim this wire just a little bit to try and get this loop to be similar to the one on the other side, so it's just a little more symmetrical looking. There we go. Just gonna push down on that a little bit. Alright, so now we're working with these two wires here. So we're just gonna take them and just bend it this way, and then I'm just gonna kind of curve it and work it underneath the two wires here that are on the side. And so like this, and just kind of work it through little by little. Don't pull. If you pull, it could just misshape everything. So just turn a little bit with your pliers, and then when this is getting too kind of curvy, just straighten it out. But then just keep turning this here. And at one point, it's just going to become like a tight little wrap like this, and then you can just kind of push this wire onto the back. So same thing here on this end, but this is going to be just a little bit more difficult to work this under. Just press down on your stone, and that'll help create that little gap to work it under there. So I'm just feeding it through, straighten that out. And then once it starts to be just like a tight little wrap, just gonna press down on that and then work this wire towards the back. So my bail is getting crooked. There we go. So now the stone should be really locked in and it shouldn't move. So what we're going to do now is just finish off these wires by trimming them and leaving just a little wire end so that it can be tucked away. And then I'm just closing up that loop and tucking away that wire end on each side. So here's the back, and here's the front, and the stone should be secure now. So now we can just try to fix the symmetry. Like I noticed there's a bit of a gap here, but there isn't here. So I'm just gonna get in there with my pliers and try to create that gap to fix that and make it more symmetrical. And then these wires here, just kind of pushing it a little bit onto the stone, again to just create a little gap here. I think it looks nice when there's kind of little gaps between the wires rather than just all the wires being on top of each other. And if you want, you can even just make a sharp kind of bend like this. And another thing you can do is with these side wires here, you can kind of push them more on the side of your stone here. If you feel like your stone is wobbling side to side at all, this will kind of help trap in the sides there. And if it's still feeling wobbly after you have put these wires on the edges up top, you can kind of grab these front wires with your pliers and just kind of push them a little closer together to squeeze the stone in a little tighter. And that should help it be less wobbly. And then here on the back, you can push these two wires a little bit together as well. And these wires on the back as well, these crisscrossing wires, you can put a little bend in them this way. Like that. So those are all little troubleshooting steps if your stone is feeling wobbly. And last step for preventing wobbliness is this wire here that we've bent onto the edge of our stone. If it's sticking up a little bit and there's a gap between that wire and the stone, just go ahead and, like this one has a tiny gap, you can see, press that down with your pliers, but be careful not to move your stone in the process when you're pressing that down. And then these little loops up top here, you can kind of press down on them as well. All right, so hopefully now your stone doesn't really wobble. If I really push hard, I can get mine. I don't know if you can see, it's just like the slightest ever, but it's really secure and it doesn't move out of place, and it would never, you know, if you wear it, it would never fall out. So I'm going to grab my cord necklace so that I can show you what it looks like when you are wearing it. So here's what it looks like. And then here's the back. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.